shadow kind of matches my nails and my shirt. So weird how that always happens. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. We've got a real casual video today. We're gonna do kind of a fall get ready with me using some of the products that I am just really loving right now. I've got a newly discovered favorite blush that I'm falling back in love with, an eyeshadow palette that I have always loved but I haven't used for a while, and then some other staples to fill in the gaps. So I hope you guys are looking forward to it. Before we get into the video, special welcome if you are new here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoy this video and I hope that you'll consider subscribing to my channel and make sure your notifications are turned on so that you know every time I upload something new. And with that said, we do have a lot of makeup to put on, so let's get to it. Okay, we're gonna start with the primer. I'm hoping that my sunscreen has soaked in. I just barely put this on. Usually I like this to soak in for a good 30 minutes or so because it kind of has a bit of a white cast to it. But as I may have mentioned in the intro, I got halfway through filming this video and didn't have my mic turned on. So we're starting over. I'm gonna take, this is just my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless filter. I'm just gonna apply this in the center of my face. You know, my face is probably gonna look a little bit white casty right now because of that sunscreen. Hopefully it won't mess up my foundation on top. All right, now let's add some foundation. So I've been really into using a brush for the last week because I just find this gives me such great coverage. Now it can get a little bit streaky in certain areas, especially where I have some fine lines. Like I feel like it doesn't sink in as well to my skin, but it does give me amazing coverage. So I've been really enjoying doing this, especially with this combination. The ColourPop Pretty Fresh foundation. I'm gonna take one pump of this. And this is a touch light on me right now, so we're gonna give just the tiniest amount of my Flower Beauty. This is Tawny M4, which is quite a bit dark on me. So I just took a tiny bit in there. We're gonna mix those together and then apply it with a brush. I think I still might have it a little bit too light, but that's okay. I have a good bronzer that we'll be using today. I'm just gonna take my clean fingers and go around the edges of my hairline, make sure I don't have any foundation that's gathered in there. Also along my brows. Just kind of smudge out around the edges. Now let's add some concealer. Although I don't feel like I really need it, but we're gonna do it anyways. We're gonna take my Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting in the shade Vanilla. I've been a bit hot and cold with this concealer for the last couple of years. I've probably had mine for a good 3 years now. I know most people would throw their liquid products away at that point, but you guys know me, you've been watching me for a while. I don't do that. I do find this one, if my skin is dry, can look a little bit cakey in the dry areas, but I love the coverage of it. The shade match is probably one of the best shade matches that I own, as far as this is light enough that I can use it under my eyes, but it's also not so light that I can't use it on the perimeter of my face. We're gonna blend that in with this little sponge here. I'm gonna come back and use a lighter concealer on my eyelids for a primer, but blend this in first. Let's add a little bit of this concealer. This is my Milani Conceal and Perfect in the shade 115. This is a very light concealer. For some reason, this lighter shade, the shade 115, has dried up quite a bit. I think I've probably owned this one for, hard to say, year and a half, maybe. Is this like pre or post COVID? I kind of feel like that should be the new BCAD, before COVID. After COVID. Anyone else judge time by what things that happened before COVID or after COVID, before the pandemic, after the pandemic? Actually, no, let's not do that. It's hard enough to move on and pretend like the last 2 years just didn't happen. Look at that coverage. Let's add a little bit of powder. I'm gonna take my Rimmel Stay Matte powder. I'm gonna powder my eyelids, powder my forehead, between my brows, sides of my nose, and I do have a powder bronzer that I think benefits from a little bit of powder on my cheeks. So I'm just gonna put a tiny bit on my cheeks. This is such a lightweight powder. I know it looks like I probably put on a lot, but this is very sheer. For bronzer, we're gonna take my NARS Original Laguna bronzer. I've been really back into this bronzer lately. I reached into this one about 5 or 6 days ago and I have been using it every day since. I just really like the shade of this one. It's such a pretty warm bronzer shade and it's so easy to blend. Like it goes on like you think it's gonna be streaky and then it just like blends out like a dream. Love it. Hopefully I don't have foundation on my earrings. Always bugs me when I'm editing and I notice I have like smudges of foundation on my earrings. All right, let's add some blush. I am loving my NYX Sunkissed blush right now. This has been an old favorite of mine, but again, as with most of my blushes, it gets very neglected. But man, you guys, there is something about this shade of blush that is just so unique, so special. It has this subtle brown tone to it, but it's not brown. Like, it's nice and rosy. It's not too orange. It's just such a great shade of blush. Take it on my Alter Ego brush and slowly start to build that up. You guys will see what I am talking about. This is just such a great shade. Look at that. Beautiful. Now let's add some highlighter. We're gonna take my Essence Pure Nude highlighter today. Man, I hate the packaging of this thing, but it is a fantastic highlighter. One that I often neglect, probably because of its poor packaging. I could probably go and replace this, but that one would probably just end up breaking too. So I have to deal with the packaging situation. But man, this is such a great highlighter. This is one of the ones that's in my shop, my stash right now. All right, let's tackle the brows. Let's start off with my, do you guys remember this thing? I did a video on this $1 billion brow product that I picked up at, I believe, a Marshall's. We're gonna use this today. I kind of like the shade of this because it's a little bit dark, and I've kind of been liking my brows a little bit darker and bigger lately. And because I wear glasses, my glasses always cover my brows. So I kind of like my brows to be, so I draw them up here instead. I'm just kidding. I don't quite do that. Mostly when I'm doing like a smokier eye. I like my brows a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Is that a song? It is. You gotta be a little bit, I don't know the words. My husband goes through these weird phases in music. I shouldn't say weird. They're not weird. I don't listen to music a ton. I listen to podcasts too much. I'd probably be better off and a happier person if I listened to music more than I listen to podcasts about the end of the world, but I can't help it. Okay, I was just rambling and I probably ended up cutting most of that out. So that's the larger brow. Hopefully it's not too big. And then I put a little bit of my e.l.f. brow lift on top of that and brushed it out. Okay, let's move on to eyes next. So today we're gonna use my Juvia's Place Nomad palette. I am always raving about this palette and I don't use it very often for you guys on camera. I think the last time I maybe did a look with this one was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So we are going to use it today. My guess is there are a lot of you that own this one because I rave about it all the time. So to kick things off, we are going to combine these two shades, which I've never done, but because I feel like if I combine these two, we're gonna perfectly match my shirt.
Oh no, she didn't.
You know, I am always tempted to do that, so let's do it. And I've never tried this. I'm curious what shade this is gonna come up with. This shirt is kind of a strange shade. It's kind of mustardy, but it's darker and browner than like a traditional, what is that shade called? That like yellowy, that fall yellow. Like a deeper sunflower. Oh, it has a name. What's the proper name for that? I think the World Series starts this week and I go Phillies. I'm kind of excited for the Phillies. I don't think they've made it into the World Series for a while. There was a time my kids were really big fans of Bryce Harper. I kind of have mixed feelings about him. I think he's a bit of like a punk, but what do I know? I don't really follow baseball that closely. Anytime I see a player that I feel like looks a little bit cocky or ornery, I tend to just dislike them, even though I don't really follow baseball that much. But I know that he's good. He hasn't won a championship. I think that he left the Nationals, and then the year after he left, they won the World Series. Oh, it's kind of sad and tragic and hilarious all at the same time. We were pretty big Nationals fans for a bit. We have like our wheel of teams that we typically root for. The Dodgers are our #1 team. Sadly, they got knocked out first round this year, which was so sad, but man, they just couldn't hit the ball very well. I cannot root for the Astros though, despite the fact that my father and mother-in-law, they're actually temporarily living in Houston right now, but I can't root for Houston. They beat the Dodgers and then it was discovered that they were cheating, which I will never be able to root for them again. Sorry to all you Astros fans out there. Although I don't know, maybe they feel like they need to redeem themselves after that whole situation. I'm sure not everyone was involved in that. And I feel bad for the players that probably had no involvement in that whatsoever and got, you know, branded by that whole controversy. Ooh, look at that. Perfect match. Kind of a cool shade. Let's darken that up just a little bit with this shade right here. One of my favorites in this palette, this dark kind of charcoaly blue-green. Let's take that on this tiny little blending brush from Sydney Grace. We're just gonna start smoking out this outer lash line and outer corner. Let's see, so I would probably just leave it there, but I do want to show you guys. So I've had some comments from you guys before. Anytime I talk about this palette, there's always one or two of you that mention the yellows are a little tricky to work with, or that you don't like yellows, or they don't look good on you. And I can understand why not everyone would love a yellow. I think it is a bit of an intimidating shade of eyeshadow, kind of like a blue. But this is what I like to do with a yellow. So I'm going to show you guys what you could do with a yellow, just to kind of add a little something different or unique to your look that's not going to be too intimidating. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this yellow on my brush, and we're just going to apply that above the crease on this outer corner right here. Look how fun. So just the tiniest bit right there, just adds a little pop without it being too in your face yellow. So I'm going to take my little smudge brush right here, and we're going to dip into this orange, that first shade that we kind of combined. Just a tiny bit of that. I actually put a little bit on the back of my hand because this is going to be a little dark, and we're going to run this on the lower lash line halfway in, just to tie it up to the outer corner. Okay, now for my favorite part. I'm going to dip into this center gold right here, show you guys this shade in action that I'm always raving about. Just look at it. It is magnificent and so quick and easy. That was like 2 little taps. There is a reason I rave about this. Such a great undertone, nice and bright without being icy, not too warm or like too yellow of a gold, but it's just so quick to tap on. It's very intense and metallic, and if you don't like it this intense and metallic, you can apply it with a brush. It'll be a little bit softer. Now we're just gonna go back to that tiny blending brush. I don't have anything left on here. I just wanna blend this outer edge so there's not an obvious point where the shimmer ends and the matte begins. All right, there we go. Let's add a little bit of my Wet n Wild liner. I'm just gonna take a tiny bit here. By the way, this one is brand new, and I find it to be stiffer than I'm used to with these liners. Let me give it a quick sharpen. That might also be because as we transition into winter and we haven't yet turned our heat on down here, it's a little cold in my filming room, so it's possible that it's just colder down here. There's the finished eyeshadow. I'm gonna take a couple of coats of my Pat McGrath mascara, then I will be back and we will finish off with the lips. All right guys, eyes are all finished. They look so beautiful. This palette never lets me down. Let's finish off with the lips. We're gonna start off with a lip liner. I'm gonna take my MAC Oak lip liner. Overline and then just lightly fill them in just on that inner edge. I think it is the temperature in here. This is feeling extra stiff as well. And then we're gonna take a little bit of the Wet n Wild Cloud Pout in the shade Flutter Mutter. This one's kind of like a peachy. Let me just give it a swatch for you guys. There it is right there, very pretty. Oh yeah, that goes perfect with that lip liner. Nice. And last, because Halloween's coming up in a few days, I'm gonna take this is an old collaboration with Ulta. This is the Harry Potter Hedwig lip gloss. It's just a clear gloss with a bit of glitter in it. Apply a little bit of this just on the center. Let's do some setting spray as well. Let's take my All Nighter Ultra Glow setting spray. And there you have it. This is the finished look. Love how everything came together. The combination of like the lips and cheeks and the eyes. What a great fall look. This palette is such a good one. I know you already know my feelings on it very well, but hopefully I showed you that today. Do you have or have you tried the Nomad palette? Do you have it because of my recommendation? I'd be very curious to know down in the comments below. Feel free to let me know what your thoughts are on any of the stuff that I tried today. Thank you guys so much for stopping by today. I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're enjoying my October video so far. Let me give you one last reminder. If you are not yet subscribed, make sure that you do that before you leave, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye. So I made it this far and realized I didn't turn my mic on. I haven't made that mistake for a while. It is such a bummer of a mistake to make. Looks like I better wipe my makeup off and try again. A while ago, we were in the car listening to one of his 80s, early 90s mixes that he makes. Man, it was quite the walk down memory lane. He had like Tracy Chapman Fast Car on there, which is another song that totally reminds me of my husband. Josie's on a vacation far away. You know I like my girls a little bit older. I don't wanna lose your